Monday night mystery for BBC One with the story of the disappearance of 3 girls and their teacher on a picnic at Hanging Rock. That's tomorrow night at 10 past midnight.
Bristolers on the hockey.
Eric, you require 122.
Harry flukes a double 17, which is 2 sevens, or gets triple 17, and that's more than double, like maybe 2 sevens. Oh, third. Hold on, Eric.
To 1 in 6 people, numbers just don't add up. You can improve by calling us for your free Count Me In pack.
So it's 100 and... Can we start again?
For your free pack, call 0500 555 666.
Catching up on all the latest weather words now on BBC2, we join Bill Giles.
Hello again. It's still pretty cold over central and eastern parts of Europe. Remember, on our temperature maps, the blue areas show the coldest of the weather. I think as we go through the first part of the week, the cold weather staying where it is, and then in the second half, somewhat milder weather beginning to push across southern parts of Scandinavia. Still quite cool in the eastern side of the Mediterranean, but not too bad in central and western areas. A fair amount of cloud around, quite a few lumps of cloud, one through the central part of the Mediterranean, giving some pretty unsettled weather, more in the way of cloud too on the eastern side. So as far as Monday is concerned, that's where we're likely to see the heaviest of the showers through the central basin of the Mediterranean. Some snow coming down into the northwestern parts, and a fair amount of cloud at times in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. And then on Tuesday, snow with some strong winds, so some blizzard conditions pushing its way down across into Russia, Belarus there, and some snow running back through across in towards Germany. But high pressure dominating the scene in the northwest, and still a fair number of showers down through the central part of the Mediterranean. Back into this country then, and it's a very misty, murky night over many parts of England and Wales. The thickest of the fog probably through the Midlands and down into the south. Some quite nasty, dense patches of fog there too, and coupled with a frost, I think there could be some icy stretches on untreated roads. The lowest temperatures in the Midlands down to about -3, -4. That's around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. At the same time, we're getting little bits of rain coming down across Scotland, and as that clears away in the north, so there could be a frost there at the end of the night. High pressure then dominating the scene on Monday, on Tuesday, and indeed Wednesday, in fact for the rest of the week. So we will be chasing bits of cloud around certainly in this coming week. A lot of mist, a lot of low cloud, in fact a very gloomy start over many central and southern parts of the country. Thick patches of fog around too, and as I've said, some icy patches on some untreated roads. The cloud thick enough over southern Scotland, particularly down across into Northern Ireland, to give a few spots of rain, but really not amounting to very much at all. And then brighter weather beginning to push down across Scotland as we go through into Monday morning. Now it looks as though this gloomy weather will slowly lift up through the morning. It'll take a time, not promising you very much in the way of sunshine at all, certainly not as much sunshine as there was on Sunday, and at the same time some little drizzly bits of rain coming down into northern England, particularly on the eastern side, and then slipping down through Lincolnshire, East Anglia, perhaps into parts of the southeast during Monday afternoon, Monday evening. And at the same time, much brighter weather with sunshine coming down across Scotland, Northern Ireland. Most places dry there. There will be 1 or 2 showers though dotted around up in the far north, and certainly feeling much cooler over England and Wales than it did on Sunday, 6, 7 or 8 degrees, the mid-40s Fahrenheit. Into Tuesday, early fog and frost I think in places. That'll be clearing away to give some sunshine, much the same on Wednesday and indeed Thursday as well. But the big problem I think we'll have this coming week was chasing bits of cloud around that anticyclone. That's it. Bye-bye for now.
This is BBC2. Welcome now as we move into the learning zone for education through the night. And this is the shape of things to come in tonight's Learning Zone. In a moment, FETV with the collectibles. That's followed by French language at 4 o'clock, business and work at 5, and then at 6 o'clock, mathematics from the Open University. Now it's FETV with the collectibles, selected educational programmes from the daytime output, which are being repeated especially for students and teachers in further and adult education. This morning we continue with the theme of numeracy skills. The programmes are drawn from two series, Away with Numbers and Some Chance. Both are presented by Carol Vorderman and explore the use of numbers in everyday life.
How do we divide our time? Well, in one sense, we have no choice in the matter. It all depends on how the Earth moves around the Sun. Now, as the Earth spins, different parts of it are bathed in the light of the Sun. And the time it takes to make a complete revolution is 1 day. Now, there's nothing we can do to change that, but how we divide the day is up to us. Now, nobody really knows why, but we break up the day into 24 hours. And it's a curious number to pick, but quite useful, because we can split the 24 hours into 2 lots of 12 hours, 3 lots of 8, 4 lots of 6, and so on, for working, sleeping, even for watching television. Now, not only does the Earth spin, but it also moves around the Sun. It takes 1 year for the Earth to get back, in effect, to the same position. Now, there's nothing in the universe to say the Earth should take an exact number of days to complete its trip around the Sun. In fact, it takes 365 and a bit days, and that extra bit of time is why every 4 years we have a leap year with 1 extra day. Mind you, a year of 365 days is too long a period to be manageable, so we break it down into months and weeks. Our 7-day week gives us 365 divided by 7, that's 52 weeks with 1 day left over. That extra day means we need a new calendar every year. So if the 10th of March this year is a Sunday, then last year it was Saturday. Well, that's good for calendar makers, but confusing for the rest of us. Now, this programme is all about coming to terms with time.
Mr. Moore, your general knowledge questions start now. How long is a piece of string?
Pass.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Pass.
How many days make forever?
Pass.
What was happening before the beginning of time?
Oh, this isn't fair. These questions don't make any sense.
Correct.
Time is full of deep mysteries, such as why are there 7 days in a week? After all, 365 divided by 7 doesn't give us an exact number of weeks. Now, the book of Genesis tells us the world was created in 6 days, and on the 7th day the Creator rested, and that gives us the 7-day week. But the 6 days of creation are even more special. I can make 6 by adding 1 plus 2 plus 3. Well, so what? Well, I can also make 6 by multiplying 1 times 2 times 3. So the numbers which multiply together to give 6 also add to give 6. And what could be more perfect? No other number in the whole universe is the product of 3 numbers and the sum of the same numbers. Maybe the writer of Genesis was also a mathematician. Nowadays, not many people work 6 days a week. Even a 5-day working week doesn't suit everyone.
Up until 4 years ago, I worked full-time here in the cardiac department at Withington Hospital until I found that I needed to spend more time at home with my family. I needed time from work whilst my little girl was quite poorly with measles in hospital. And I found that I incurred quite a lot of difficulty in actually obtaining the time. I could work part-time, but I would have to drop down a grade. And so I wasn't very happy with that outcome, and so I decided that I would write to the Equal Opportunities Commission. I had quite a lot of correspondence from them, and they suggested that I consider job sharing. I spent about 2 years working full-time, having had the idea about job sharing, but I didn't have anybody to share the job with. when one of the other girls who was the same grade as myself, Catherine, she became pregnant and went on maternity leave.
When Anne first mentioned the idea to me about job sharing, I thought it was a fantastic idea. And knowing the job share setup, it would have meant halving my hours. And I thought then, this is great. I'll probably be able to cope quite well with a baby and working half the hours I previously had been working.
The plan was to split the job in half, and I would work half the hours and Kath would work the rest, and we'd split the pay between us. I had quite a bit of maths working out how much we'd pay in national insurance and that sort of thing. And in the end, I was able to show that it wouldn't cost the hospital any more money.
We needed to split the time, and there were several considerations. The first way we thought was to do half days each. Perhaps Anne come in the mornings and myself come in afternoons.
We thought it would be quite expensive because we'd have to pay for a whole day's childcare and also the travelling mileage. And by the time you got home, the day more or less gone, so it wouldn't leave us with as much time as if we'd worked whole days, really.
Yeah. So the other way we thought was to do perhaps 3 days in the week and have 2 days off, and then work 2 days the next week and have 3 days off. And we gave that some consideration, but we decided we didn't quite like that idea.
Also, for the benefit of the people who we work with, they wouldn't know who was in that particular day, if it was you or if it was going to be me.
That's right.
And it was a bit more confusing, I think.
And then I think the third choice was to take it doing a week about, which we really thought this is the one. Work a full week in and take a full week off. Well, in 5 years, we've never needed to change that system, apart from the odd exception, and it works marvellously. For me, the advantages of job sharing are having a full week off. I can organise myself better my time, I can do leisure activities, have a full week to do things that I really want to do.
The best thing about job sharing is that I can spend more time with the children, whereas before, working full-time, it's just weekends, and you find that your household chores take up most of the time. You have very little time to spend with the children.
Do you suffer from 24-hour depression? Well, these are the symptoms. You've just settled down to watch a favourite programme you've recorded. Maybe you'll find out who killed Laura Palmer. And what do you get instead?
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the
That woman again. And why? Well, it's that little devil, the 24-hour clock. As we go about our normal lives, we divide up the 24-hour clock into 2 lots of 12. The problem is that while we know the difference between 8 a.m., 8 o'clock in the morning, and 8 p.m., 8 o'clock in the evening, our little electronic friends like it spelled out rather more clearly. With the 24-hour clock, I don't have to say whether it's morning or evening. Now, if I take a peek at the New Look Radio Times, I can see that Twin Peaks starts at 9 o'clock in the evening. So what's that on the 24-hour clock? Well, up to 12 o'clock midday, everything remains the same. From 1 p.m, the hours are not what they seem. I have to add 12 hours to the normal time to get the 24-hour version. So 1:30 in the afternoon becomes 1 plus 12, or 13:30. 2:15 becomes 2 plus 12, that's 14:15. Now, adding 12 in your head can get a bit messy. I prefer to work with tens, so I would first of all add 10 and then add 2. So, the start time is 9 o'clock in the evening. 9 plus 10, that gives me 19, plus 2, that gives me 21. 9 o'clock in the evening is 21 hours, or as some military types would say, it's 2100 hours. As for actually setting the recorder, if all else fails, read your instructions. It's even more important to be able to make sense of 24-hour bus or train timetables. So, if a train leaves at 19:25, what time will my watch show? Well, the big danger is to think 19, oh, that's 9 o'clock. But if I do that, I'll be 2 hours late for the train. Basically, I have to take away 12 hours. Now, with times in their teens, between 13 and 19, I take away 2 and then just ignore the 10. So, train leaves at 19:25. For the moment, I leave the minutes. 19, take away 2, that's 17. Ignore the 10, that leaves me with 7. And at this stage, it's as well to have some sort of double check. So I like to remember that 8 o'clock in the evening is 20 hours. 19 hours has to be 7 o'clock. Just as my train leaves at exactly 19:25, my watch should show exactly 7:25. Good old British Rail. Of course, all this accuracy assumes I've set my watch to the right time in the first place.
A certain soldier had to fire a cannon at 6 o'clock sharp every evening. Being a soldier, he did so. When his accuracy was investigated, he explained, "I go by the absolutely accurate chronometer in the window of the clockmaker in the city. Every day at 17:45, I set my watch by it and climb the hill where my cannon stands ready. At 17:59 precisely, I step up to the cannon, and at 18 hours sharp, I fire." And it was clear that this method of firing was absolutely accurate. All that was left was to check that chronometer, so the clockmaker down in the city was questioned about his instrument's accuracy. "Oh," said the clockmaker, "this is one of the most accurate instruments ever. Just imagine, for many years now, a cannon has been fired at 6 o'clock sharp, and every day I look at this chronometer, and it always shows exactly 6. So much for accuracy."
If it moves, salute it. If it's stationary, paint it. One of the few things that homes and television studios have in common is paint. Lots of it. Now, painting, like any job, needs planning, the right order for doing things. Without some sort of schedule, I can waste a lot of paint and a lot of time.
I'm a scenic artist. I paint sets and backcloths for television and films. My partner, Judith, and I work in a converted barn, which we call the Sistine Chapel. What's this?
This is the Freestone comedy sketch, the one you did the tracing for.
Great. If we complete jobs too early, we have to store work for a period of time, which we haven't got space to do. If we complete late, we hold film TV units up, which is totally unaffordable. We've got a specific job on, I can use as an example here, that we're doing for a BBC comedy sketch. To begin with, we need to stretch canvas on our frames and prime it. So, for the priming and drying, we allow a day. Then I've got to paint the sky area in, which is about half a day's work, and the mountains, the buildings, and the middle distance here. That's another half day's work. We need to paint all the stonework. It's about a day's work. That's the total job, 3 days.
As a painter and decorator, it's important that I do my job as quickly and efficiently as possible. I'm usually in someone's home, so I want to keep disruptions to a minimum. And also, the sooner I finish, the sooner I'm on to the next job.
Well, this particular room has been left in fairly good condition. The walls have already been stripped. Woodwork just needs undercoating and glossing. Ceiling needs emulsioning. And just the walls of paper, I should imagine about 3 days at the most.
Paint it blue.
If ever you are painting woodwork, it's always essential to give it a good sanding down first to get the best possible finish. Undercoating may seem a waste of time, but without doing it, you never get a proper finish.
That's all right. That'll be dry for tomorrow. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the colours for grading down. Put those in layers to about 5-6 feet at the base there. I used to do skies with brushes. Nowadays I use spray. It cuts down the time element immensely, and it is almost like doing a giant version of watercolour.
When you're painting a panelled door, always paint the panels first. Then you do the inner down stiles. Now you go across the stiles. Finally, you paint the outer stiles.
Most people consider painting a rather relaxed and leisurely activity. It certainly doesn't feel that way to us. Sometimes it feels like a madhouse. We can work on as many as 5 or 6 different films in a week. It's a fantasy world we work in, and it's very easy to get lost from reality. With the mountains, I try and get a basic pattern going first of how the light feels and how the texture or the quality of the surface is. In this case, quite a strong side light to give some guts and some more three-dimensional quality. Chris is working from my original drawing. This is scaled at 1/2 inch to a foot. We don't treat scaling up as a precise science. We work very much to what the actual picture we're working on is looking like.
When you're paper hanging, remember to soak the paper for the right amount of time. Otherwise, if you under-soak it, you find you get bubbles. And if you over-soak it, you get stretching.
Once we go from the middle distance into the foreground, my speciality area is over in effect, and we become very much more a team. And we work very much as one unit. This is really for good economic and speed reasons.
It's looking good, Fred.
Hello, Malcolm.
What's tomorrow, Fred?
Malcolm, tomorrow's another day.
The calendar we use nowadays looks very irregular. Some months have 31 days, some 30. February has 28, except for leap years, of course, when it has 29 days. Now, I can tell if it's a leap year if the last 2 numbers of the year will divide exactly by 4. So 1988 was a leap year because 88 divides by 4. And 1992 is a leap year for the same reason. The Olympic Games are always held in a leap year. It's better for the high jump. Now, to work out the correct number of days in any month, some people remember a rhyme. 30 days, half September, and so on. But I rather like another way, using the highs and lows my knuckles make. Now, I take 31 days to be high and 30 days to be low. So let's start with January. That knuckle is January, that's high, so that's 31 days. The dip, or valley, is February, that's low. Well, I know it's normally 28. The next knuckle is March, high again, so 31 days. Low for April, 30 days. May, June, July, back to the start, August, September, October, November, December. Well, suppose it's the 25th of June and I want to arrange to meet someone in a week's time, but I'm caught without a calendar. Well, 25 plus 7 days makes it the 32nd of June, which is a bit odd. So, how many days are there in June? Well, January, February, March, April, May, June. June is in a dip, so it has the low number of days, 30. The 32nd of June is really 2 days into July, the 2nd of July. It really does work, but don't just take my word for it. Now, the modern calendar may be a complicated mess, but 2,000 years ago, it was even worse.
Oh,
Oh, don't bother me now. I could smack a tribune. Well, it's all this messing around with the Roman calendar. You see, it all started with the first Roman calendar, which they modelled on the agricultural year. Stupidious. Only 304 days. So after a while, they realised they were wrong and they added January and February. But they only gave those 51 days between them, so it was still 10 days short. Ludicrous. So after a while, it was ridiculous. People going on the summer holidays in the middle of winter. Then along came Julius Caesar, and he sort of sorted it out. First of all, he had a year with 445 days to clear the backlog. And then he sort of modelled it on the Egyptian year. 6 months with 30 days and 6 months with 31 days, all mixed up. Now, that was one too many, so he knocked one off February and gave it 29 days in a normal year and 30 days in a leap year. Is that clear? Oh, it was marvellous. We celebrated with parties. And Julius had a month named after him, you see, with 31 days. He was born in that year by caesarean. There's a coincidence. Well, everything would have been fine, but now along comes this great clod-upping fool of a Roman, Augustus, and he wants Sextilis named after him. And it's only got 30 days. So what do I get this morning? A decree, and not so flipping nice either, saying from now on Augustus will have 31 days and February will only have 28. Well, it's all right on papyrus, but what about your permanent calendars? I mean, it could be catastrophicus. Oh! Me thumbonius!
My log has the answer to certain questions about time. It contains a natural calendar. Now you can see it more clearly on this big log. The lighter wood grows in the warmer weather. The ring from here to here is 1 year's growth. It has a built-in history, a timeline. Now I can use this idea to get a sense of quite long periods of time. On a metre ruler, I can imagine each millimetre represents 1 year. If we're here at the beginning of the 1990s, then the end of the ruler is the year 2000. Going backwards, that's the year I was born, 1960, 3 years before the Beatles' first #1. And in the life of this tree, that would have been about here. Going back to the ruler, there's the period of the Second World War, the beginning of this century, and running back quickly, the first poll tax riots in 1381, 1066 and all that, and the year 1000 AD. So this ruler represents 1000 years, and it gives me some sort of feeling of where we are on the timescale of history. Now, as we approach the end of the 20th century, people are planning all sorts of celebrations for when we enter the next. But when will the 21st century start? Well, it's tempting to say the 1st of January, the year 2000. But once again, things aren't that simple. As we think back in time, before 1000 AD, we get to 1 AD. Now, by tradition, the year following the birth of Christ is called 1 AD. And the years before, well, that's 1 before Christ, 1 BC, 2 BC, 3 BC. In other words, there was no year 0. So by the time the 1st of January, 10 AD had arrived, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years had gone by. On the 1st of January 1000 AD, only 999 years had passed. And on the 1st of January 2000 AD, only 1,999 years will have passed. So we'll move into the 21st century on the 1st of January 2001. Not yet. Sorry about that. The next programme is a bit more down to earth. With a good sense of proportion, it's about ratios and percentages. Time I went, I think.
this range is in pushcorn, isn't it, Mr. Humphreys?
Right, first time, Mr. Granger. 35% wool, 35% pushcorn.
Well, that only makes 70%.
Yes, well, there's a lot of air between the fibres. So.
Well, never mind the quality. What about the saving? This programme is all about percentages, what they mean, why we use them, how to work them out, and how to keep the whole lot in proportion. Most of the numbers we come across in day-to-day life describe actual amounts or quantities. 2 metres of cloth, 3 handkerchiefs, 25 pence in change, and so on. And if I change the amount, I change the number. There, now it's 50 pence. But percentages, proportions, and ratios are ways of sharing things out. Percent means parts in 100. 1% means 1 part in 100. 6% means 6 parts out of 100, and so on. So a percentage is a fraction of 100. 100% of anything is the whole lot. So if one sock is 100% pure wool, a pair of the same socks is also 100% pure wool, even though I now have twice the amount of wool. If I imagine something divided into 100 parts, then the number in front of the percent sign tells me how many parts of the 100 I'll get as my share. The best way to start thinking about percentages is as pennies in the pound. So, with 100 pennies in a pound, 10% is 10 parts of the 100, or 10 pence. 50% is 50 pence, and 100% is 100 pence, the whole lot. Now, if a sale sign says there's 10% off the marked prices, then on something marked £1, I would save 10 pence. On something marked £2, I would save 2 lots of 10 pence, that's 20 pence. And on something marked £3, I'd save 30 pence. The actual amount I save varies, 10, 20, 30 pence, but the saving is still 10% of the original price. Now, prices may be reduced in the sales, but overall, most prices do increase a bit from year to year. Price rises affect everyone, so it's not surprising to find them in the news.
Inflation in Britain is down for the 3rd month in a row. It fell to 9% in January, a drop of 0.3%.
Inflation started last year at 7.7%. It rose to nearly 11% in October, but has now fallen for 3 months in a row.
Every month, the government announces the figures for the rate of inflation. But what does a 5%, 9%, 11% rate of inflation mean? Well, it's a broad measure of what things cost now compared with what they cost exactly a year ago. Now, the prices of some things go up more than others. Now and again, some prices even fall. So to get a good idea of how prices generally are changing, I need to look at a shopping basket of goods and services, including many of the normal things I buy in the shops, plus rents, mortgage, electricity, gas, and so on. To work out a percentage price rise for any one item, the first thing I need to know is the price a year ago. Now, last year, this coffee cost £1, or 100 pence. Today, 12 months later, it costs £1 and 9 pence. So it's gone up by 9 pence. Well, since the old price was 100 pence, the price increase is 9 parts in 100, which is 9%. Now, last year, this washing powder cost £6. Now it costs £6.48. A price rise of 48 pence. So, for every £1 or 100 pence of the original price, there's been an increase of 48 pence divided by 6, because it was £6, which is 8 pence. The price has risen by 8 pence in the pound, 8 parts in 100, which is 8%. The thing to remember about inflation is that when it's at, say, 10%, prices overall are going up by 10% in a year. If the rate of inflation falls to, say, 5%, then prices are still going up, but by 5% in a year. The fall from 10% to 5% means that prices are rising more slowly, but they are still rising. But percentages aren't just about money. If I take the high road and you take the low road, I'll be in Scotland before you, but I may have to walk up a few steep hills to get there. The sign for a steep hill is this, and since 1981, new signs have shown the steepness of a hill as a percentage. But you'll still see signs around that give the steepness like this as a proportion. But what does this mean? What's the link between 20% and 1 in 5? 1 in 5 means that for every 5 metres along the road rises by 1 metre. 20% means 20 parts in 100, which is the same as 1 part in 5. So 20% is exactly the same as 1 in 5. Whichever way you look at it, a 1 in 5 hill is pretty steep, but it could be the road to ruin.
It's an everyday and exceedingly well-known fact that Americans in the 1920s had a hard time getting their hands on the hard stuff. The sale of alcohol had been made illegal, and gangsters like Al Capone were onto a nice little earner controlling its supply. The moonshine they sold was made using somewhat primitive equipment, which meant the resulting hooch was often particularly potent. To avoid being caught in possession of this moonshine, Capone's canny customers resorted to ratios. A hard spirit could be made to look like soft drink by the judicious use of juice. In fact, concocting cocktails was a handy way of disguising the dubious taste of Al's alcohol, and they soon became extremely popular. But they brought with them mixed blessings. Getting the ratios right was terribly important if you wanted to keep a sense of proportion. Too much alcohol could make you queasy in the speakeasy. Al Capone, however, had no such worries. The cocktail's popularity was making him a fortune. Even when the law started closing in, he was only shaken, not stirred. After all, they needed 100% proof to convict him, and Al had that safely bottled up in his cellar.
Al Capone was finally jailed for not paying his taxes. If you fill in a tax form or write a letter or use paper for anything, you may have noticed something about the sizes. These days, most paper is sold in standard A sizes. This is A0, and they go down. A1, A2, A3, A4, right down to A5. But whatever the A size, all the pieces of paper are the same shape, and that's because the ratio between the length and the width is always the same. So if I divide this distance by this distance, I'll always get the same answer for every size of paper. Now, if I take a piece of paper, and this is A4 size, I can see that there's something rather special about that ratio, because if I tear the paper in half, each half has the same shape as the original sheet, and I can prove that by holding the torn piece closer to the camera than the whole piece. Now, the torn sheet has only half the area, but it has exactly the same shape. And this idea holds true for the whole range of standard paper sizes. They all have the same shape and proportion. And keeping things in the right proportions is important in many other walks of life and leisure. If you do a lot of gardening, you probably use compost. Much commercial compost is based on peat. Many people are concerned about the amount of peat that we're digging up and the effects that's having on the environment. I can use less peat and save money if I make my own compost. I just need a sense of proportion. Now, the recipe for traditional John Innes compost is made using a ratio of 7 parts of soil to 3 parts of peat to 2 parts of sand, 12 parts in all. I can think of it as fractions. 7/12 of soil plus 3/12 of peat plus 2/12 of sand. 7 plus 3 plus 2, that's 12. 12/12, that's the whole lot. With this mixture, the peat is only 3/12 of the total. 3/12 is the same as 1/4. So only 1/4 of the final mix is peat. Now, it doesn't matter how much or how little of this recipe I make up, as long as I keep things in the right proportion. Using these plant pots, I have enough compost for a couple of hanging baskets. But if I want enough compost for a whole flower bed, I can just as easily use buckets full. Then everything will come up roses. For a professional gardener, keeping things in proportion can save more than just peat.
Weeds can be a major problem in any garden. In this particular instance, I would use a hoe to clear these weeds, but as a last resort, I would use a weed killer. If I use a weed killer, then it's important that I use it at the right rate. If I use too much of the chemical, then I damage the environment. If I use too little, then the weeds don't get killed. In order to work out the right dose, I need to know the area of the plot, so I have to measure it. That's 2.5 meters. And that is 20 meters. This weed killer is used at 6 litres per hectare. A hectare is 10,000 square meters. That's about the size of a cricket ground. I measured my plot to be 50 square meters. So 200 of these plots fit into a hectare. 6 litres is 6,000 millilitres. If I divide 6,000 millilitres by 200, then that gives me 30 millilitres to add to the tank. For spraying, I don't actually need this, but there again, I wouldn't be spraying this weather anyhow. The height that I hold the jet above the weeds is important. If I hold the jet too high, then the droplets get blown away in the wind and I lose a high percentage of my weed killer. When it comes to spraying a shrub border, I need to know the exact area to be sprayed. In this case, the border is actually occupied by 60% shrubs, and I don't want to spray those, so I need to spray 40% of the area. Weeds aren't the only problem in the garden. Slugs and snails can be a major problem. A lot of people use slug pellets for that, and they use far too many. In fact, they do a lot of damage to the soil. All that's required really are 6 to the square metre. But I reckon the best way to deal with slugs and snails is to go out at night with a torch and pick them up.
See, the snails are off again. Now, one time when I have to work out a percentage in a hurry is when I have to work out a tip. This meal cost £4.70. Now, I normally leave about 10%, and that's a tenth. So I need to divide the bill by 10. I just move the figures one place to the right of the decimal point, and that's 0.47 or 47 pence. I'll leave a 50p piece. Last of the big spenders. Now, percentages crop up in all sorts of situations. If you're seeing circles before your eyes, it could be the percentage alcohol in the demon drink. Now, this whiskey is 40%, and that percentage is the proportion of pure alcohol in the drink, 40 parts in 100. Now, for the sake of your health, if you do drink, it's important to know how much alcohol you're taking in, and the percentages on bottles do allow you to compare the amounts in different drinks. A single whiskey is about 25 millilitres, and whiskey is 40% alcohol. So the amount of alcohol is 40 parts in 100 multiplied by 25 millilitres. 25 goes into that once and into that 4 times. 40 divided by 4, that gives me 10. So this measure of whiskey contains 10 millilitres of alcohol, this much. Now, we're often told that a single whiskey is equivalent to or contains the same amount of alcohol as half a pint of beer or a glass of wine. But does it? Well, that depends on the percentage of alcohol in the beer or wine. With a little maths, you can work it out for yourselves. A half pint of ordinary draft beer, which is about 3.5% alcohol, is roughly equivalent to a measure of spirits. But remember, some beers are much stronger. As for the wine, well, I get 6 of these glasses from a standard wine bottle. And with red wine at 12% alcohol, each glass contains 1.5 times as much as a single measure of the hard stuff. So wine drinkers, beware.
Okay, down there, take that. Nice shooting, kid. Hi, who be a private detective? I tell you, crime's getting out of proportion. Like 2/3 of the people down there are crooks. That's why every once in a while I take a shot out of the window. I figure I got a 2-to-1 chance of hitting the crook. But think what that means. 66% of the people out there are crooks, only 33% are straight. It's terrible. It means crooks have to share one victim between 2. But I should worry. I'm on a case, the toughest nut I've ever had to crack. Well, the second toughest. The story started this morning when my doorbell went. They'll steal anything these days. A beautiful girl opened the door in a summer dress. I thought, that's a funny place to have a door. She said, you gotta help me. My brother's stolen $1 million. I said, what's he like? She said, he likes money. I said, describe him. She said, he's tall and short. He's 7 foot tall. He's $1 million short. And he's ruthless. I said, how'd you know? She said, I'm Ruth. I'm here with you. I said, listen, sister, what's in this for me? She said, you can have 10% of all the money you get back and 90% of what you don't get back. I tried to work out what was 90% of nothing. You shouldn't have any trouble finding him. He passes your office window every day. I said, he must be tall. The office is on the 4th floor. She said, on the sidewalk, stupid. So I followed him downtown. It wasn't difficult. He gave me a lift on his tandem. As he stopped, he got off and kicked me in the teeth. He went in the statistics office, so I followed. The place had been turned upside down. As I walked in, I tripped over the chandelier. But there was a brother poring over the census papers. Put that teapot down, I said. And then I noticed in his other hand, he had an eraser. I dropped my gun, my wallet, and my ID card into a box of flat fish on the floor. Everything fell into place. I realized what he was doing with the census papers and the eraser. He was systematically rubbing people out.
Private eyes may be paid by results, but most people who work have to rely on an annual pay rise. Inflation means that overall things cost more this year than last year, so a pay rise may not always mean that you're better off. Supposing you've been paid £180 a week for the last year and your boss offers you an extra £10 a week. Is that a fair offer? Well, if the rate of inflation in the 12 months since your last pay rise has been 9%, then taken together, the things you spend your wages on will have gone up in price 9 pence in the pound. So just to be able to afford the same things as last year, your earnings should go up by the same amount. To work that out, you need to know what 9% of £180 is. Well, 1% is 1/100th. So to find 1% of £180, I just move the numbers 2 places to the right to get £1.80. 9% is 9 times 1%, so that's 9 multiplied by £1.80, which is £16.20. If the rise you've been offered is only £10, then allowing for inflation, you'll actually be £16.20 minus the £10, that's £6.20 a week worse off than you were this time last year. Time for a bit of negotiating, perhaps. It's not just prices that inflate. Certain animals have a reputation for rapidly increasing in number, and maths tutor Sarah Oliver's been looking at what they get up to.
We live in a jungle. I'm surrounded by chaos. But is it possible that beneath all this madness, there's some underlying harmony? None of us seem to have an answer. But 600 years ago, an Italian called Fibonacci, better known to his friends as Blockhead, pulled the solution out of a hat. He was trying to solve a famous old problem. If you have 1 pair of rabbits in January, how many pairs will you have at the end of the year? Fibonacci not only solved this furry problem, but he also worked out how many pairs you'd have at the end of each month. breeding bunnies produces the famous Fibonacci number sequence, in which each number is made by adding up the two numbers before. So the number of rabbits in April is made by adding together the February and March rabbits, and so on. So what's all this got to do with a piece of string? Well, the secret is in the knot. The knot divides the string so that this bit on the right is 1.6 times bigger than this bit on the left. As Fibonacci's numbers get larger, each number is 1.6 times bigger than the one before. This special ratio or relationship is known as the golden ratio, and it's been around for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks called it the divine proportion and put it into their temples. The ratio was found to be pleasing to the eye. Islamic artists included it in their art and architecture. And in Italy, Leonardo da Vinci showed that it even occurs in the human body. Today, we can find it in playing cards, paperback books, and even cassette tapes. Sunflower seeds are arranged in spirals, 34 in one direction, 55 in the other. Is it coincidence that these are two Fibonacci numbers in the ratio of 1 to 1.6? In nature, Fibonacci numbers and the golden ratio are hidden all over the place, in the claws of a canary, in the tusks of an elephant, and in the arrangement of leaves on just about every species of plant. In fact, I'm surrounded by the golden ratio. So although this world may look like a jungle, underneath, maths makes it all connect.
In a five-sided figure, the golden ratio is the ratio of the distance between two corners and the length of a side. But if you've ever tried to draw a five-sided figure, it isn't easy. One way is to tie a simple overhand knot in a piece of paper. Take a strip of fairly flimsy paper, and if you keep the paper flat, gently tighten the knot, fold back this, and this side you should end up with a perfect pentagon. The next programme is about a different way of looking at numbers using graphs and charts, and how sometimes they can be used to mislead. I'll see you then.